Unfortunately and tragically, yesterday marked yet another mass shooting at a school in St. Louis. Now, Monday's school shooting was the 40th school shooting this year alone, resulting in injuries or death. And that's according to a tally that was done by Education Week. They started tracking school shootings beginning in 2018. Now, here's some information on who the shooter is. I think this story has this intersection of so many societal issues that we'll delve into in just a moment. But here are the facts as we know them today. Orlando Harris was the shooter. He graduated from Central Visual and Performing Arts High School last year and returned Monday with an AR-15 style rifle, over 600 rounds of ammunition, and more than a dozen high capacity magazines. And that's according to the St. Louis Police Commissioner, Michael Sack. Now, he disclosed more information about the shooting during a press conference. We learned more about the shooter, who is, or was, I should say, he's no longer alive because he engaged in a shootout with cops. But nonetheless, the 19-year-old gunman who killed 2 people and wounded several others at his former high school left a note saying his struggles led to the perfect storm for a mass shooter, St. Louis police said. So I'm not really interested in flashing his photo on screen. Yeah, okay, well, thanks for that. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of go to the fact that these mass shootings happen quite often. And there oftentimes is a perpetrator who wants national attention, and this is the sick way they seek it. But I do think it's important to give you the facts of the story, and then after that, we'll just refer to him as the shooter. But nonetheless, let's move on, because I want to talk more about the victims here, the letter that the gunman left behind, and also the strategies that were put in place prior to the shooting happening that were meant to keep the students safe. Basically, all the things that Republicans who want to avoid any gun control cite as what should be done on these campuses to keep students safe from mass shooters. Now, the gunman, as I mentioned earlier, later died at the hospital following a shootout with police. Apparently, police were on the scene within 4 minutes, and they're kind of congratulating themselves because their rapid response and the fact that they didn't hesitate, in their minds, prevented more people from being shot and killed. But there were 2 victims who lost their lives, including a 15-year-old student by the name of Alexandra Bell, and also a teacher by the name of Jean. She was 61 years old, and she died while trying to protect her students from the shooter. It's just absolutely tragic, and it really does go along with this trend that we hear about other educators who have lost their lives in the middle of mass shootings as they were attempting to protect their students. Now, going back to the handwritten letter that I had referred to earlier, it was found in his car, the same car that he drove to the campus. And it kind of gave a little insight into his frame of mind. He said, quote, "I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I've never had a girlfriend. I've never had a social life. I've been an isolated loner my entire life." Now, let me just preface this by saying that there is absolutely no excuse for what he did. And by talking about this, I'm not providing cover for the vicious act of violence that was committed on that campus that took the lives of 2 innocent individuals. But with that said, there has been a little more of a national conversation in regard to how alienated people feel, in particular, how alienated young men feel in this country. And I think that there is a tendency to kind of conflate that with incels and to kind of dismiss it as, incel discourse that we shouldn't be concerned about. But we have to be real about the fact that alienation and the fact that we're so atomized has been pretty destructive to this country and to other countries, to be sure. This is something that affects everyone, not just men, but it has been particularly pronounced among the young male population in this country. And I think what we do by ignoring the reality of the situation is essentially drive them into the arms of these incel factories, right-wingers who essentially use women as the scapegoat for whatever struggles, personal struggles that these young men might feel. Now, again, I want to repeat again, because of course, people have this tendency to strawman or to put words in your mouth. I am not in any way providing an excuse for what he did, but I do think that the conditions that Americans are expected to deal with and survive in, the fact that people are working longer hours for less pay that is not kept up with inflation, wages that haven't risen since the 1970s, the fact that we're pressured to take on multiple jobs just to make ends meet, that does in fact lead to alienation. I think that this is driven by our economic system. It's something that I want to do a deeper dive into on the show tomorrow, but I did want to just provide a little bit of commentary on that in relation to this shooting that took place in St. Louis. Now, Police Commissioner Michael Sachs said that this was the perfect storm for a mass shooter and that it could have been much worse given the extensive arsenal of the shooter. He had high capacity magazines. He had an AR-15 style assault weapon, as you know, and in previous mass shootings, we've seen a much higher number of individuals killed as a result. Now, the school apparently had a little more preparation for the possibility of a mass shooting than other schools. So let's get to those details. Authorities credited locked doors, something that Republicans had been calling for, and a quick police response, including by off-duty officers, for preventing more deaths at the school. DeAndre Davis, director for safety and security for St. Louis Public Schools, said the security guards stationed in the district schools are not armed, but mobile officers who respond to calls at schools are. Now, that's interesting. It's a little bit of a mixed report because there are some individuals, involved in this story who have information about how the school security works, who say there are some who are armed. That statement is completely unclear. So when you talk about mobile officers, what does that mean? How close are they to the campus? Are they on campus? None of that's been really cleared up for me. And to be clear, the police commissioner did say not all of the public safety security officers are armed. So there potentially are some who are armed on that campus. I give you that information because I hope you guys are noticing a trend here. So they locked the doors and the cops confirmed that they had locked doors, something that right wingers say schools should do in order to prevent people from dying during a mass shooting, okay. They have 7 security officers on campus, 7 of them, some of whom are likely to be armed, okay. They have mobile police officers who are nearby who are very clearly armed. And they also have to go through metal detectors, the students do, in order to enter the campus. Now, the police commissioner was unclear, would not disclose how this 19-year-old former student was able to get on campus. There was no information disclosed on that because according to the police commissioner, they don't want to, broadcast what some of the vulnerabilities are for other potential shooters. Okay, but fact of the matter is, everything that the right wing said needed to be in place in order to prevent people from being killed were in place. And 2 innocent people were still killed. A mass shooter was still able to enter that campus. Let's go to Shannon Watts' tweet here because this is exactly what I'm referring to. The school in St. Louis had metal detectors. Police said the doors were locked. There were armed guards inside the school. 2 people are dead. Republicans will tell you the solution is somehow more guns. On November 8th, you need to tell them they're full of it. Okay, so we have to do something about the easy access to these weapons. I've been pretty clear about where I stand on guns. I am not in favor of banning guns. I think a conversation can be had about high capacity magazines for sure. We absolutely need to close any loopholes that currently exist in regard to the federal background checks. So for instance, sales between private sellers, sales at these gun shows that don't have to go through a federal background check. Those loopholes, very simple, close them. Everyone who is purchasing a lethal weapon should be checked out to make sure that it's not some dangerous individual who's going to use those weapons in a mass shooting or in a crime. I mean, there are endless stories about how our guns are being funneled south of the border to fuel cartel violence. So it's not just terrorizing the people of the United States, it's terrorizing people south of the border with cartels easily getting guns smuggled to them so they can carry out their vicious acts of violence against people in Latin American countries. So to say that we shouldn't do anything about gun control is ridiculous. I believe in the right for people to defend themselves. I'm a proponent of owning a gun if you're a responsible individual, keeping it safe and keeping it, in your home for self-defense if you ever need it. I have no problem with that. I'm actually a proponent of that. But clearly the fact that a 19-year-old was able to get his hands on an AR-15 style assault weapon with a high capacity magazine, we should be questioning why we're okay with that. Why we currently live in a country that has essentially warranted that. And the other thing is, while Republicans purport to care so much about mental health care, they never vote in favor of funding mental health care programs. Earlier this week, I shared a story about how only one Republican in the House of Representatives voted in favor of legislation to fund mental health. One Republican, that is it. So yes, people are feeling atomized and alienated. Yes, depression, anxiety, mental health issues are very much real in this country, and people are not getting the help, the treatment, and the care they need. So we do need to do something about it. It's just that the individuals who purport to care about it so much only after mass shootings never want to fund it, never want to vote in favor of it. They just want to use mental health as a talking point to immediately distract Americans from the other thing we need, which is common sense gun legislation. That's it. And finally, it is a problem that we are so divided. We don't feel much connection with one another. That people feel so alienated from society. That is an issue, and that's something that we need to grapple with. And it's something that I hope to talk about in more detail on future shows. Now, it's unclear again how the gunman entered the building, but it is important to hear from some of the people who get victimized by these mass shootings. So I want to go to one student who told CNN, this is the last graphic. The teacher, she crawled over and she was asking for help to move the lockers to the door so they can't get in. And we started hearing glass breaking from the outside and gunshots outside the door. So when we talk about mental health care, it's not just about the potential perpetrators of mass shootings. We need to have healthcare, mental health care available to the students, the teachers, the staff, to the people who might not have died as a result of a mass shooting, but certainly will suffer the mental health ramifications of having to witness and experience this traumatic ordeal, this tragic mass shooting. A lot of problems in this country, and there is no one factor or one fix. There are multiple issues that we have to deal with, and the depressing part is we don't really see much of an effort to deal with these issues. We have a two-party system that is failing the American people. Both are very much pro-corporate, both are very much concerned about their own political aspirations and their own profits. And that is to the detriment of the American people and this country.